Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us this evening for this really, really important conversation. In case you don't know me, I am Tiffany Muller, president of End Citizens United, and we are a grassroots organization dedicated to rooting out corruption in government and expanding and protecting the freedom to vote. And we're really proud to have over 4 million members across the country from all walks of life: firefighters, nurses, teachers, retirees, everyday Americans who believe that our government should work for the people, not just the folks who can write the biggest check. And look, I wish that this town hall was convened under better circumstances, but the reality is that Republicans have forced a government shutdown. They hold all three branches of government, and instead of working to keep the country running, they've chosen to grind it to a halt. And now they're doing everything they can to duck responsibility. But let's be perfectly clear: Republicans own this shutdown. We are less than 24 hours in, but the damage is already being felt across the country. Families are facing the threat of higher healthcare costs. Federal workers are facing a threat of missing paychecks. Communities that rely on essential government services are being left in limbo. And the list goes on and on. And it's all in the service of keeping their billionaire donors and special interests happy and rich at the expense of everyone else. Democrats, on the other hand, are standing firm. They're fighting to protect the ACA premium tax credits. They're trying to block Republicans' cuts to health care and working to make sure that families don't have to pay more for the price of Republican corruption. While Republicans are manufacturing the chaos, Democrats are working to lower costs and make government deliver for the people it's supposed to serve. So that's why we've gathered here tonight to talk about what's happening. And there's no one leading that fight with more clarity and determination than leader Hakeem Jeffries. He's been the steady hand guiding Democrats through negotiations, keeping the focus on working families, and exposing Republicans for siding with the billionaires. And we're also so honored to be joined by an incredible group of leaders who are on the front lines of this fight. So you're going to be hearing from all of them: Congresswoman Sarah McBride from the great state of Delaware, Congressman Jamie Raskin from Maryland, and Congressman Stephen Horsford from Nevada. All incredibly powerful voices in the battle to protect working families. So with that, it's my pleasure to welcome Leader Jeffries from the great state of New York to kick off introductory remarks.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Great to be with all of you. Thank you, Tiffany, for your kind words of introduction, and more importantly, just for your leadership, your partnership, your friendship, the work that we've done together. House Democrats and End Citizens United has resulted in some very powerful, important steps forward in our continuing effort to deal with the corruption here in Washington, clean it up, and make sure we actually can deliver a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, not what Republicans have given us: a government of the billionaires, by the billionaires, and for the billionaires. So it's an honor to be on with you and with all of the tremendous advocacy groups, activists, and organizations in this moment of struggle on behalf of the American people. Donald Trump and Republicans have shut the government down because they don't want to provide affordable health care to working class Americans. Democrats have made clear that we will sit down with anyone at any time or at any place in order to reopen the government, to try to find a path toward a bipartisan spending agreement that actually meets the needs of the American people, and to enact legislation that actually advances the health care of the American people, as opposed to what Republicans are doing, which is to continue to gut the health care of everyday Americans. And in that struggle, House Democrats are united, standing shoulder to shoulder together with our colleagues in the Senate. But I'm so thankful for the tremendous work that House Democrats have and will continue to do in this fight that we are waging. We're in this fight until we win this fight. And you'll hear from some great members of the House Democratic Caucus today, of course: Jamie Raskin, Sarah, and Stephen, as we wage this righteous struggle on behalf of hardworking American taxpayers.
Thank you so much, Leader Jeffries. And we are going, for everyone who's joined us, we're going to hop into some Q&A here in just a minute. But before we do, I want to make sure we hear from our other amazing guests as well. Congressman Raskin seems to be having a little bit of technical difficulties with video. So, Congressman Horsford, if we could go to you next, that would be wonderful.
Well, thank you very much, Tiffany. I want to thank you and End Citizens United for your tremendous leadership, as Leader Jeffries said, and really just to underscore the moment that we are in. First, to Leader Jeffries, because of him, House Democrats have been nothing but unified on behalf of the American people and, quite frankly, have helped to ensure that our colleagues, our Democratic colleagues in the Senate, also remain unified on behalf of the American people. And we're fighting for one thing: to cancel the cuts, to lower the cost, and to save healthcare. That's the focus in this moment. And all of you are an important part of making sure that we can do that. Look, I serve on the Ways and Means Committee, and just a few months ago, we were sounding the alarm about the negative effects of this big, ugly bill that they now passed into law. Not only because it gave tax breaks to the very wealthy, to the super rich, to their donors, but it also was the largest cut to healthcare in the history of our country. So they gave the benefits to their wealthy donors, and then they stuck all of the middle class workers and families with the cost and with the cuts. And right now, in this moment, we are working to make sure that that does not happen. Republicans do control the House, the Senate, and the White House, and yet they can't even pass their own agenda or budget. And this is not the first time. Just 8 years ago in 2018, 2019, when Donald Trump was in the White House and the Republicans controlled the House and the Senate, what did they do? We had the longest shutdown in history, 34 days. Fast forward, Trump's back in the White House, Republicans control the House and the Senate, and they're dragging our country back into the same hole. Now, look, I'm from Nevada, and we're already dealing with the Trump slump in Las Vegas and the economic downturn because of the uncertainty, the economic uncertainty that is trade wars and tariff chaos, and now the cuts are having on everyday families and small businesses. And that is why coming together for this conversation is so incredibly important. I agree with my constituents that we deserve a government that works for us and not against us. And that's the opportunity that we have tonight with all of you. So thank you. And I'm honored to be here with the other guest members who are participating.
Well, thank you so much, Congressman Horsford. It's an honor to have you here. Congresswoman McBride, want to kick off next?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany, for bringing us all together. Tiffany was actually my first boss. I was still in college interning for her. And so I owe everything to Tiffany. And I am so grateful for the work that she does, for the work that ECU does, and for the leadership of our leader, Hakeem Jeffries, at this critical moment. I am so proud to be a member of the House Democratic Caucus every day, but I am particularly proud to be a member of the House Democratic Caucus this week, as we are holding the line in defense of healthcare for the American people, as we are holding the line in addressing this healthcare crisis that Republicans created. This is the moment for everyone to come to the negotiating table, which Democrats have been at for months now, which Republicans have stonewalled and boycotted. This is the moment to reopen the government and to address the health crisis that we are in, not next year, that we are in right now. Because 40,000 of my constituents are about to get letters from their insurance companies that will show significant, in some cases, 100% increases in their healthcare premiums under the Affordable Care Act plans. And beyond all of that, we're already seeing around the nation healthcare facilities, hospitals, federally qualified health clinics closing because of the Republican cuts to Medicaid that are on the horizon. We're seeing cancer treatments, cancer research stopped because Republicans slashed that funding. There is a crisis in this moment. And in this moment, we have to stand firm for the American people. We have to stand firm in the urgent and life-saving goal of saving healthcare for our constituents. And we continue to be ready to work with Republicans to reopen this government and to protect people's care. And I am so proud to stand with my colleagues in this moment. And I will just say, since we are on this call with ECU, that people have to understand that the corruption, the chaos, and the consolidation of power that we are seeing by Donald Trump and Republicans in power in this moment is directly related to this healthcare crisis. Because Donald Trump, to get elected, created an unholy alliance with billionaires. And that unholy alliance meant that the billionaires funded Donald Trump's campaign and are facilitating his consolidation of power. And in exchange for that, Donald Trump promised massive tax breaks for those billionaire donors. And to just partially pay for it, they raided the healthcare of the American people and created this health crisis that we are now in. And so we cannot stop this abuse of power. We cannot stop this consolidation of power if we don't solve this health crisis right now in this moment for the American people. And I will now turn things back over to you, Tiffany, because I see my colleague, Representative Raskin, is now visible and available.
Look, you did a really great job filibustering up until he was able to be available. So thank you, Congresswoman. And thank you for really making the connection so clearly between corruption and the money and obviously the healthcare fight we are in to help protect millions of Americans. Congressman Jamie Raskin from the great state of Maryland, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'll turn it over to you for some brief remarks, and then we're going to hop into a Q&A discussion.
Tiffany, thank you for your great work. And Sarah McBride, thanks for having my back there. And hello to our fearless leader, Hakeem Jeffries, and Steve. Hello to you. Thank you for your leadership. Look, basically, we've got two different public philosophies that are duking it out right now all across America. And our philosophy is the government must be an instrument for the well-being, the healthcare, and the common good of the people. And their theory is the government is an instrument for the private self-enrichment of the guy who gets in and his family and his businesses and corporations and his buddies. And so, when we say they're shutting the government down, this is true. The Republicans are shutting the government down, but they've been shutting it down for 9 months. I represent more than 50,000 federal workers. They've been shutting down USAID and causing hundreds of thousands of deaths among children and babies all over the world because they're pulling the plug on AID. They've been shutting down the Department of Education and Title IX and Title I. They've been shutting down the NIH. They tried to rip billions of dollars out of biomedical grants and public health grants. They've been firing thousands of people at the Department of State, at throughout embassies throughout the world, you name it. So they've been disassembling the government, and now they just want to go all the way and dismantle the government rather than deal with the healthcare crisis that they've created in the country. So we are fighting for healthcare for millions of Americans who are about to lose ACA tax credits. It is a gutting of Obamacare and what we were able to create with the Affordable Care Act. And they want to shut the government down without even engaging in the pretense of negotiation, right? I mean, Donald Trump couldn't even remember Hakeem's name. That might be a separate problem. I don't know. But they were not entering into serious negotiation. The Democrats were all here yesterday. We tried to introduce our continuing resolution that would both save healthcare and keep the government going. No Republicans were there except for the one guy who was sent in to gavel us out and to refuse to recognize the Democrats. We were all there today. None of the Republicans were there. Again, absent without leave. And the last thing I just want to say is this is also the Epstein shutdown too, because one of the things that they haven't done in failing to show up for work this week is to swear in our new colleague from Arizona, Ms. Grijalva. She would have been the 218th signature, and she will be the 218th signature on the discharge petition, so we can vote on the total release of the Epstein file. So how convenient for them also to shut the government down when they knew that our bipartisan majority would be able to just blow the roof off of this nest of corruption with an international child sex ring. And they were all about releasing the files until they deputized 1,000 FBI agents to stay up all night going through all of the documents, all of the photos, all the videos. And after noting Donald Trump's recurring presence, they came back and said, better not do it. And Trump said, nothing to see here. I'm going to sweep it under the rug after they had been demanding it. I mean, Kash Patel went on a podcast and said, pull up your big boy pants and show us who the pederasts are, directing it right at the FBI, saying the FBI director alone can do it. And now the FBI director, Kash Patel, is covering the whole thing up. So in any event, the corruption is inextricable from this war on the living standards of the working middle class in America, and the Democrats are hanging tough. And I'm so proud of our caucus, the way every single member is there demanding that we reopen the government and save the health care of the people. Back to you, Tiffany.
Thank you so much, Congressman Raskin. It is so wonderful to have everyone here. We're going to hop into the Q&A section, and really outside of this first question, which I'm going to direct to Leader Jeffries, I'm hoping this can just be an open conversation. Anyone can answer any question. I wish I had given you all buzzers. That would have been better, like press your luck style. Okay, but let's start with one that we get quite a bit. So first, Leader Jeffries. Republicans have had every chance to keep the government open, but instead they chose to drive us into this shutdown. But now they're trying to muddy the waters and confuse people across the country by saying that the Democrats bear responsibility. Obviously, they need a reality check because last time I checked, they currently have control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. So this is clearly a Republican shutdown. But can you lay out why they bear responsibility, what this chaos means for working families? And then the question I think we get more than anything is, what can people who are on this call do about it?
Yeah, thank you so much, Tiffany. This is day one of Donald Trump's shutdown, but it's day 255 of the chaos that Republicans have visited upon the American people during this presidency. And in many ways, it's just a continuation of what has been an all-out assault by Republicans and Donald Trump and their extremism on all the things, an assault on the economy, an assault now, of course, on healthcare, an assault on nutritional assistance, an assault on law-abiding immigrant families and communities, an assault on the rule of law, an assault on the American way of life, and of course on democracy itself. And Republicans, and Republicans alone, have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It is their responsibility to fund the government. Now, if they want Democrats to participate in that process, they have not demonstrated that at all, because throughout this year, including in this appropriations moment, they've adopted a my way or the highway approach. And the my way approach from the Republican standpoint has been, join us so we can continue to gut the health care of the American people. Our response has been a hard no. We're not going to participate in the effort to continue to try to rip health care away from the American people. What we need to do is to address the Republican health care crisis decisively. We're standing up for Medicaid recipients, standing up for people who rely upon the Affordable Care Act to receive their health care. These are working class Americans all throughout the country. We're standing up for their hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health clinics, which are on the brink of closing. And so let's continue to make the point on the ground across the country that Republicans are in charge. and they have the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and they've taken a go-it-alone approach. And Democrats are ready, willing, and able to work with them in a bipartisan way, but it has to be done in a manner where we actually adopt legislation that makes life better for everyday Americans, as opposed to enacting tax breaks for their billionaire donors. We want no part of that. And that's what this struggle has been all about. As for what people can do, I think important to continue to partner with your members of Congress, with senators who will be spanned out all across the country in different ways, holding events, highlighting our defense of the healthcare of the American people, highlighting the jeopardy that hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health clinics have been put in as a result of the Republican healthcare crisis. And also, it's going to be important to hold House Republicans and Senate Republicans accountable. They continue to vote to gut the healthcare of everyday Americans. We need them to partner with us to reopen the government and to protect the health care of the American people, including by extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which are deeply popular with the American people and absolutely necessary. And so the power of our work together in amplifying our position to the American people will be incredibly important. And the power of our work together to hold these Republicans accountable for the damage that they continue to do to the healthcare of the American people will also be necessary for us to be successful at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, Leader Jeffries. You heard him. Hold Republicans accountable, amplify the message, tell your stories, and continue to partner with the members like the ones we have right here today who are doing such incredible work to uplift this message. And that kind of leads me to my next question for all of you, which
Tiffany,
is yes,
if I can just add on that point,
of course.
because we'll always be asked what's the message, and I think as Stephen indicated, listen, 8 words. Here's our position: cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save healthcare. That's a Democratic position. It's 8 words, and we can spread it all across the country. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save healthcare.
Then I like it. We need merch. We need merch, cancel the cuts, lower costs, save healthcare. Let's do it. That's one of the other questions we get. And Congresswoman, I feel like this is might be where you are going. If not, I'm going to ask the question and then you can both make the point and answer the question, which is at the heart of this is healthcare, right? And it's tied to big money. Republicans are so beholden to their billionaire donors and the insurance lobbyists and the corporations that they're willing to let millions of Americans be kicked off healthcare or to let critical ACA tax credits expire, jacking up premiums by as much as 400% or up to $400 a month for people. So costs are already too high. People are already struggling. Why are Democrats drawing the line here? Because the other thing we've seen with this president and this administration is just an onslaught of breaking every norm, every guardrail, every corruption, right? So what does it say about Democrats that this is the line we're drawing about healthcare? What does it say about Republican priorities that they'd rather protect those big donors?
Well, I think the first thing is that every single day that Jamie, Stephen, Leader Jeffries, myself, any of us are talking to our constituents, which is every day, we are hearing about the healthcare crisis. Our constituents do not have the luxury of us prioritizing anything else but their healthcare in this very moment, because the crisis is here, it is immediate. And for the people who rely on the ACA plans, for the people who rely on Medicaid, for the people who rely on the hospitals and the health clinics in rural communities and in urban communities that are already cash strapped, their life is on the line in this moment. And look, I know that there is a lot for us to fight back against and be outraged by, and we are doing that. And in this moment, we have to focus the attention of the American people on this crisis, because the people who are seeing their premiums skyrocket, the people who are at risk of having their Medicaid cut off, we have to be their voices in this moment. They don't have the same platforms that many of us have. They don't have the luxury of getting on Zooms, because right now they're probably working the second shift, right? And so, one, we are reflecting what we hear from our constituents in this moment. Two, and I touched on this, one of the reasons why Republicans are so willing to shut down the government in order to protect their healthcare cuts is because they need to pay off their billionaire donors. And they can pay off their billionaire donors by taking money that is meant for healthcare for working people and use it to partially fund the tax breaks that they passed to pay off their donors. That is what is happening here. And if we protect care and cut off the funding that they are using to pay off their donors, then those billionaires aren't going to be there to fund their campaigns. Those billionaires aren't going to be there to facilitate their consolidation of power. All of this is connected. And then let me just say the final thing too, because this is something I wanted to add to what Leader Jeffries was saying. And that is, we are also here because Donald Trump cannot handle disagreement. Donald Trump cannot handle anyone saying no to his face. And I bet you that Hakeem Jeffries in the Oval Office on Monday was probably the first person to say no to Donald Trump's face in a year. This man is insecure and he is in over his head. He doesn't understand the stakes. He doesn't understand the ACA. He doesn't understand Medicaid. He doesn't understand how government works. He doesn't understand how anyone can stand up to him because he is fundamentally past his prime, in over his head, and can't handle anyone who's not a yes man. And because of that, they are unwilling to negotiate. They're unwilling to engage across disagreement. And they are shutting this government down because of that as well.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And I think you're probably right. Everyone else has been bending the knee. And I bet it was the first time he's heard that word NO in quite some time. I think we need to make sure he hears a lot more of it, both in person and at the ballot box. Congressman Horsford, I said I was just going to open it up, and I totally am, but I'm also going to call on you next. I think one of the things that has been lost a little bit in the muddying of the water the last few days in particular is how Democrats have been negotiating in good faith from day one, putting real common sense solutions on the table, trying to avoid a shutdown. But Republicans keep moving the goalposts. They keep not being willing to negotiate at all. They'd rather manufacture chaos. So can you just walk us through a little bit what Democrats have offered, what they've been doing, and how those solutions would protect the people who are going to be hurt most?
Well, absolutely. And I agree with everything that Congresswoman McBride just said. And I would just add, in addition to being over his head and inept, he is also cruel. He is chaotic, and he is corrupt. And the policies that he is attempting to advance and his administration and the capitulating Republicans in Congress who have continued to bend the knee, they won't even do their damn job as members of Congress. We are a separate co-equal branch. We have separate and equal responsibilities, and yet our Republican colleagues have refused to stand up to him or the executive branch. Specifically to your question, we have offered a whole host of things, from specifically the issue of healthcare. We've offered the actual amendment to extend permanently the tax credits that are set to expire. Now, this is not something that's going to happen at the end of the year. It's happening right now. Today is October 1st. People have to pay their rent. They have to pay their mortgage. And guess what? The notices are starting to come in the mailboxes about the increases because these tax credits are set to expire. We offered amendments in committee. I was the sponsor of one of those amendments during the Ways and Means hearing, and not one of my Republican colleagues would break from Donald Trump to do what was right for their constituents, to join with us to pass that tax relief. And I also want to underscore this point. Tax credits, it's not an entitlement. This is not a subsidy. We're using the federal tax code to give relief to middle-class families to do what? to keep their health care affordable. Republicans, when they make the choice, they've given that tax, they've used that tax code to benefit the billionaires, the big corporations, the ultra rich and their donors. We're saying no, let's use this to help everyday middle class families get the relief they need by being able to afford their health care. And because Republicans haven't joined with us to do that, those increases are set to go up double and even triple in some cases. I have over 85,000 people in Nevada whose health care coverage may no longer be affordable as a result. This is on top of the $1 trillion of cuts to Medicaid. This is on top of the defunding of cancer research for children and NIH and funding for science. And don't even get me started on tariffs or trade policy, which is a whole nother set of issues. But I will say healthcare is a human right. It's also an economic imperative. If you can't afford your health care, you can't afford the luxuries of being able to live without the pressures and the burden that comes with being sick and potentially going bankrupt as a result. That's what Democrats are fighting to avoid and to prevent on behalf of our constituents. And that is why this fight is worth fighting for in this moment. And we're going to continue to take the fight first to the American people and ultimately to our colleagues in Congress.
Thank you so much, Congressman. Congressman Raskin, I want to build on that just a little bit. I think that one of the things we are all saying is that this fight is very clearly about everyday people who are struggling to afford healthcare, and the big insurance companies, big pharma, big all of these other big corporate special interests that got their pockets lined with the big tax reconciliation bill, right? And this is kind of a classic case of Washington corruption. And Republicans are shutting down the government to protect those big donors and corporate special interests who often write some of their biggest campaign checks. Can you explain how their agenda is being driven by these big donors?
Well, I think you've got it, Tiffany. Donald Trump.
I always like to hear that, but I'll let you keep going.
Well, it's not a secret to anybody in America that Donald Trump's cabinet is made up of billionaires. His first hire, who did incalculable wreckage and damage to the federal government, is probably about to be the world's first trillionaire, Elon Musk. He was surrounded at his inauguration by basically the wealthiest people in the world. If they ever opposed him in the past, he's basically allowing all of them to buy their way back in. And that's who's running his administration against the vast American working middle class, which is being just completely besieged and battered by these people. I mean, it's really inconceivable to me that they would be throwing millions of Americans off of their Medicaid health care, jacking up everybody's health care costs and making it perhaps impossible for 10 or 15 million people to get ACA tax credits as they try to demolish the Affordable Care Act program at a time when their health secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is undermining the public health infrastructure, completely eroding vaccine confidence in the country, and then relentlessly promoting pseudoscience propaganda and disinformation in the country. I mean, this is a recipe for absolute disaster. And then rather than deal with the disaster that they've imposed on our medical care system, such as it is, they just decide to shut the entire government down and then go ahead and threaten to fire tens of thousands more workers as if they were somehow restrained and sitting on their hands before. They've been firing tens of thousands of workers. They're not respecting the civil service. They're literally going to court to saying that the entire civil service law and the civil service system are unconstitutional because they tie the hands of the president. The president, they say, should be able to fire anybody in the civil service system. Air traffic controllers, food and drug inspectors, Forest Service food fighters, pediatric cancer specialists and researchers at NIH, people fighting for the consumer interest at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau for whatever reason he wants or no reason at all. The whole reason we've got the civil service system is it was put in more than a century ago to say that federal workers cannot be fired for partisan or political reasons. And now they want to explicitly give the president the power to fire them for partisan and political reasons because they're not towing the mega line. So that's where they are right now. And then they say, well, if you close down the government, if you're mean to me and you let us close down the government, which is their big threat. If you let us close down the government, they say, we'll go ahead and fire more workers. Well, nothing has stopped them from firing workers all these times. They're the ones closing the government down. And if they want to go ahead and try to destroy the civil service and fire more federal workers, we will meet them in court. And understand this, Tiffany, more than 400 cases have been brought against the Trump administration since this nightmare began, and we have won more than 90% of the time in the federal district courts. And an overwhelming number in the appeals court, it's only when they can sneak it into the Supreme Court's emergency shadow docket that they've been able to use their gerrymandered and spliced and diced and packed and stacked Supreme Court to reverse some of these decisions. But the rule of law is holding up until you get to the Roberts court, because what they're doing is so blatantly illegal and unconstitutional. So they threaten to do more of it. We will see them. But the first people in my district to be calling me to say, you must hang tough for the health care of the people are federal workers themselves, because they've seen what the Trump gang is capable of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's such an important reminder that there are ways that people are standing up. There are ways that we are fighting back and we are winning. Not all of the time, but that there are wins and we need to hold on to those and amplify those to keep people motivated and optimistic about what we can do. So this is going to be lightning round, and then we're going to close up because, believe it or not, time flies when you have amazing guests like yourselves. So my lightning round is, people, I too have been traveling the country talking to people. People are frustrated. They are upset. They don't think Washington is working for them. I mean, they are right about that. They're seeing the corruption. They're seeing the big donors line their pockets while their lives are getting harder and harder. And they just want a government that works to make their lives a little bit better, right? To make it a little bit easier. So as this crisis unfolds with the shutdown, what do people need to be doing? And what do we need to say between now and next November to make sure that we take back the House next November? So lightning round, I'm going to just toss it to all of you. Whoever hits the buzzer first, go.
Sarah?
All right, I'll start. Two things I'm going to say. First, in the short term, we need you out there spreading this message. We need you out there making it abundantly clear what is true, which is that this is a Republican shutdown. This is a shutdown that is the byproduct of Republicans who are hell-bent on cutting healthcare, that they are willing to shut the government down over it. One. Two, we need you to combat the misinformation. I've seen a couple folks in the chat ask us this question, which is Republicans are going to lie, right? And they continue to lie about what Democrats are asking for. They continue to say that Democrats are, quote, shutting down the government, they say, because they say we want to fund healthcare for undocumented folks. Federal law already forbids ACA funding and Medicaid going to folks who are undocumented. Nothing in our proposal changes that. That is federal law yesterday. It's federal law today. It will be federal law tomorrow if the Democrats' budget resolution passes. They are lying, and we need people to make it clear that they are lying. And then in the long term, we need folks to help us hold the Republicans accountable. We need you out talking to your neighbors. We need you talking to folks who you know in red areas and in more conservative areas to make sure that they are activating. We can't afford a circular firing squad in this moment. We need to keep our eyes clearly focused on the Republican assault on care, on working families, and our freedoms in this moment, not on one another.
So I agree that right now the fight is getting our government back open and making sure that we restore and secure and protect healthcare, that we cancel some of the most harmful cuts, yes, to Medicaid, but also the cuts to the food assistance and nutrition assistance programs, the threat and assault to Social Security and Medicare, the attack on our veterans and the VA. I'm literally about to meet with constituents from the VA who have been given their RIF notice as of today. And so they're already being affected. And these are veterans who work at the VA. So we need to cancel the cuts. And in the long term, as Democrats, we do have to articulate what we stand for, not just what we're against. We're for economic opportunity, not causing economic uncertainty. We're for expanding healthcare and making it more affordable, not attacking it, defunding it, and as my friend Congressman Raskin saying, undermining the role of public health. We are for making sure that people have the ability to afford a home, to be able to buy a home if they're able. But when corporate speculators are coming in and buying up all these properties and pricing out average middle class families or young people not even being able to afford a home, our policies have to address that challenge. And we have to make sure that we're centering the aspirations of our constituents through education and workforce training, and the fact that, yes, there's going to continue to be transformation and innovation. And how do we prepare people every single day in our communities for that? So you all will help us do that. Our jobs as elected officials is to make sure that we are listening to you, that we are learning from you, that we're lifting up the examples that you represent in our communities all across this country, and to bring the power of the people into setting the policy so that it doesn't come from one person in one position, it comes from all of us as the people. And we actually put the people at the center of the policy who are closest to the pain and who know best how to move our country forward. So that is what I'm looking forward to doing with all of you. And the House Democrats under Hakeem Jeffries are committed to just that.
Congressman Raskin?
Yes, I'm going to say three things just to add to my friends. Number one, I just finished reading his posthumously published book, Patriot, by Alexei Navalny. And Navalny said the critical thing when you're living in an authoritarian society with an authoritarian crackdown on democracy and the rights and freedoms of the people is you must tell the truth, because authoritarianism runs on lies, like the lie that this is all about undocumented workers. It's got nothing to do with that. That was taken off the table many years ago. So just like the lie that, oh, suddenly they have new powers to fire people. They don't have any new powers to fire people. They were using powers they didn't have before. They've been struck down multiple times, and they'll try it again. And we will meet them in court if they try to punish the American people for standing up for the health care for the American people. So we got to tell the truth. Two is everybody's got to be in a group, at least one group, whether it's End Citizens United or the Democratic Party of Las Vegas with Steve Horsford or the Democratic Party of Delaware, whatever it is, be in a group, because when you're in a group, you will know what's happening on a daily basis because you know they are flooding the zone. That is how authoritarianism works. That's how corruption works. They try to mask everything in a whole bunch of smoke and mirrors while they continue to take money away from the American people and use for their own purposes. And finally, please, everybody, go back out and march on the second No Kings Day on October 18th. I think it's so important to demonstrate that millions and millions of people across the country reject this reign of error and lawlessness and terror that have been imposed on the American people. And we've got to stand up for everybody's healthcare. We got to stand up for the common good, and we've got to reject all of the lies and all of the attacks on living standards of the vast majority of the American people. While Donald Trump decides to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a new ballroom for his black tie tuxedo parties with the interests who are running his administration.
Can you believe we have been going for over 45 minutes? Of course, we are at time. I I am so inspired by this conversation, and I know that all of the folks who showed up tonight are equally as inspired. Thank you all for having our backs on the front line in Congress and fighting for all of us. We have your back, and we are going to continue to make sure that we are calling out the corruption, that we are holding Republicans accountable, that we are amplifying the message, and that we are here to hold them accountable from now all the way to next November. For all of you who joined us tonight, thank you so much for being part of Citizens United. Thank you for taking time out of your day. And we are hosting an organizing briefing next week to discuss how you can get involved, both in person and online. So please sign up. You just text briefing to 59424. That's briefing to 59424. I'm getting good at that number. And we'll send you the registration information. So thank you to all of our incredible leaders, and a huge thank you to Leader Jeffries for joining us as well. Thank you all for joining us, and I will see you soon.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Y'all are